How are you lovely people doing today? My name is John and welcome to another wonderful, great, and fantastic episode of the Zombie Storyline Q&A. In this series, I take your questions about the zombie storyline and I answer them. Whether it be a big, a small, or a simple question, I'm more than happy to answer it. So go ahead, leave your questions down below. Maybe I'll see it and hey, maybe I'll answer it. You may even be in the next episode. If you want, there are two ways you can submit your questions. First way is via Twitter. You can tweet me at JohnnyJ25. It's probably the best way to get in touch with me. I'm always checking my Twitter. Another way you can get in touch with me and leave your questions is to put them down in the comments below. One more thing before we begin the episode, I have a second channel. A link is down in the description. I haven't really uploaded anything to it yet, although I should be uploading very soon. I just have to find a little bit of free time, and I should be able to get a video up on that channel soon. So if you'd like more Johnny J25 in your life, you can go check that out. If you want, you can also see my Dying Light Let's Play on Zommunity, a link down below. But let's get with this week's episode. We're gonna kick today's episode off with a question from the one and only Jackass12343, who asks, at Johnny J25, what did the prisoners do to go to prison? So let me first start off by saying, I've noticed there's been a lot of Mob of the Dead on my channel lately. I'm not entirely sure why, it's just sort of a coincidence for those of you who are wondering, but why are everybody's favorite cellmates going to prison? So we'll start off with Salvador De Luca. So he got to prison because he was sort of the leader of the mob. He was involved in a lot of things from illegal alcohol, gambling, and prostitution, so he made a lot of money. And then as a result, he used that money to invest in organized crime, and he basically became the leader of a mob. And this was during the 1920s, and eventually he got busted and sent to Alcatraz. Now he had a couple people working for them. First off was the Weasel. The Weasel was basically Sal's con man. If he ever needed to sort of trick somebody, or if he ever wanted to run a scam, the Weasel was your guy to go to. He was one of the slickest con artists Sal ever knew. We also had Billy Hanson. Now, Billy Hanson was somebody who aspired to be in the mob. He wasn't exactly all that involved in it, but he looked up to people like Sal and the Weasel because they were relatively high up in the mob. Now, he was basically a hitman. He would do all the dirty work that Sal didn't want to. He actually is in prison right now for 116 murders, so that's really what got him sent to Alcatraz. And then finally, we have Finn O'Leary. Now, Finn was actually somebody who was married to a prominent actor, but he went to jail because he had 16 counts of gambling fraud. He was involved in the gambling operations run by Salvador De Luca. So that's really how these guys got sent to jail. They were sent to Alcatraz, and remember, Alcatraz is the prison where the worst of the worst are sent. So these guys, and as you could tell from the reason they're in jail, are some of the worst criminals in American history, and that's why they actually went to Alcatraz. Although, however, these are fictional characters. Let's just remember that they actually didn't really commit these atrocious crimes. They're not real people. So the next question comes from Jacob Staup, who asks, who are the soldiers in Knockdown, Toten, and Verrückt and World at War? Why did they get replaced in Blackouts with the original characters? So we have to remember what was going on when they created the map Knockdown, Toten. Zombies was just barely surviving. The game could have been cut at any moment during its development process. It was a very last-minute effort from a very small group of developers over at Treyarch. They were looking for some kind of bonus game mode, and very underground and very secretly, some guys started developing Nazi zombies. That's really how it came about. It was a very last-minute sort of grassroots addition. They really didn't have time to create just a bunch of characters and backstories and hire voice actors because they were really just trying to get this game on the disc. They were trying to create a working game mode and then get it approved by the execs over at Activision. So that's really what was going on with Knockdown Toten. They really just threw 4 character models into the map, and those were the 4 unnamed Marines, as we call them, that you play as in Knockdown Toten. Now, Verrückt was a little bit of a different story. Verrückt, they had a little bit more time to develop the map. However, what they really were trying to do was just create a successful follow-up zombie map. Knockdown Toten created a little bit of a cool new phenomenon within the Call of Duty community, and they really just wanted to follow it up with another great zombie map. So they included a couple more features, and then because they had a little bit more time, they did create some new characters and give them a little bit of a voice. However, these were still unnamed Marines. We did learn that Tank Dempsey was one of these 4 unnamed Marines. However, if you play the map, you won't hear anybody refer to him as Tank or Dempsey. It's just because they added that as sort of a later, they added that into the story later on. So they had this established backstory, and then they went back and said, oh, By the way, one of those guys in that mission was actually Tank. But you won't learn that by playing the original Varrock, because at the time of the development, they didn't really even begin thinking about a story. They didn't create the story until Shino Numa, and then once they had an established story, they went back and they left hints and backstories behind the other zombie maps that came prior. So we're going to finish things off with a question from 115 Zombie Slayer, who asks, so do you now think transit is not in the future? No, no, no. So I created a video on this about 7 months ago in which I explained why transit cannot take place in the year 1960 and has to take place in the year 2025. If you want, you can check out that video. I'll put a link to it in the description. And as I went back to read the comments on that video, I realized a lot of them are incredibly just misleading and cancerous. I mean, they are bad. I've explained my argument, and I really can't be convinced otherwise. I mean, you can try, but really, it just doesn't seem physically possible when you think about it. So there are a lot of instances of time travel and element 115 displacement throughout the zombie storyline, but this is one of those situations where it just quite frankly doesn't work. Die Rise has to take place in the year 2025 or later. Buried, Die Rise, and Transit all have to take place in the same period of time. Transit can't happen in 1960 and then have Die Rise happen in 2025 because those pylons all need to be activated in the same exact instant. So if Die Rise takes place in 2025, then Transit has to take place in 2025. You can say that the cars don't look like cars from the year 2025, but that is irrelevant. The story cannot function properly unless Transit takes place at the same time as Die Rise, which as far as we know is at least the year 2025. If you want, I explain it further in a video. You can check that out. A link is in the description. Anyway, that's about it for this week's episode of the Zombie Storyline Q&A. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like. Maybe even subscribe. I upload new Zombie Storyline Q&As every week, and if you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll love the next one. You can leave your questions down below, or you can tweet me at JohnnyJ25. And if you want some more JohnnyJ25 goodness in your life, there's two things you can do. One, check out my Let's Play over at Zommunity. A link to it is on my channel and in the description, or you can check out my second channel. Once again, a link is in the description or on my channel. Have a wonderful day, and bye.